Welcome back, creeps and creatures, to the vault inside the Crypt of Nights. The only place where movies that got buried alive come crawling back for another chance at glory. And tonight, oh baby, we're cracking open a film that everybody swore was dead on arrival back in 2003. The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Yeah, I know. Every critic, Alan Moore himself, even some fans, they all lined up to take turns kicking dirt on this thing. But you know what? Watching it again all these years later, I think we were a little too harsh. Directed by Stephen Norrington and headlined by Sean Connery in his last live-action role, this flick had everything going against it. The studio didn't know how to market it. The behind-the-scenes stories of Connery and Norrington fighting became legend. And then Alan Moore was out there at every convention throwing shade like he was getting paid per insult. But here's the thing. None of that is on the screen. What we actually got was a pulpy steampunk adventure that feels like the Victorian Avengers, before Marvel even figured out how to print money with Iron Man. And when you watch it without all the baggage, it's a hell of a fun ride. And let's talk about Stephen Norrington for a second. This guy could have been the British Guillermo del Toro. No joke. Before League, he directed Blade, 1998, which practically kicked off the modern comic book movie boom. That film was stylish, bloody, and way ahead of its time, and it showed that Norrington had a real eye for gothic visuals and monsters that belonged in the shadows. But then League comes along, it flops, and suddenly Hollywood slams the door on him. One bad roll of the dice, and poof, his career's gone. It's a shame because the man had the imagination and visual flair to build a whole empire of dark fantasy if he'd been given the leash. Now here's where things get wild. The making of this movie was basically its own pulp adventure. Fox couldn't get the rights to the actual Invisible Man, so instead we got an Invisible Man, Rodney Skinner, which honestly works fine. They dropped Fu Manchu, probably for the best, and then the studio said, hey, throw in Tom Sawyer so American teenagers will buy tickets. At first, the producer thought it was the dumbest idea ever, but then admitted it was actually brilliant because Sawyer gives the team some heart. Connery, meanwhile, took the role after turning down Gandalf and the Architect, pocketed $17 million and bam. That's why everybody else in the cast was relatively unknown. Filming in Hungary and Malta sounded glamorous, but behind the curtain it was chaos, broken special effects, rushed deadlines, Connery and Norrington butting heads like two stubborn bulls. And yet somehow, through all that madness, the crew pulled together a movie that still looks incredible on screen. Steampunk submarines, gothic sets, hides smashing through walls. None of that behind-the-scenes drama stops the finished product from being a spectacle. Set in 1899, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen brings together some of the most famous and infamous figures from classic literature to stop a shadowy villain from plunging the world into war. Leading the charge is Alan Quatermain, played by Sean Connery, a legendary adventurer who's roped out of retirement for one last mission. He's joined by Captain Nemo, Nasiruddin Shah, equal parts genius inventor and swashbuckling swordsman; Mina Harker, Peta Wilson, a brilliant scientist with a supernatural edge thanks to Dracula's bite; Rodney Skinner, Tony Curran, a thief who stole the secret of invisibility; Dorian Gray, Stuart Townsend, the immortal scoundrel cursed by his portrait; and Dr. Jekyll/Mr. Hyde, Jason Fleming, who wrestles with the monster inside him. And then, of course, there's Tom Sawyer, played by Shane West. Now, here's where the movie takes a sharp turn from Alan Moore's graphic novel. Sawyer wasn't part of the original League. Fox pushed for him to be added so American audiences, and especially younger viewers, had someone to latch onto. Purists grumbled, but honestly, he works. Sawyer gives the film a dose of reckless energy and balances out Connery's grizzled veteran vibe with some youthful firepower. Together, this unlikely team faces off against the mysterious Phantom, a masked figure pulling strings behind a plot to ignite global chaos. From London to Venice to Mongolia, the League races against time in a story that mixes espionage, gothic horror, steampunk spectacle, and good old-fashioned pulp adventure. Think Avengers with gas lamps, gothic mansions, and brass submarines. What really blows me away on the rewatch is how well the filmmaking has aged. Remember, this came out in 2003, when a lot of CGI-heavy movies from that era now look like PlayStation cutscenes. But League? The effects hold up shockingly well. Captain Nemo's Nautilus still looks like a floating cathedral of steel and brass. The streets of Venice crumbling into the water feel epic instead of cartoony. And even Hyde, big, burly, and monstrous, comes across as physical and weighty instead of rubbery CGI nonsense. The sets, costumes, and production design are pure eye candy too, giving the movie a timeless, steampunk vibe that still looks fresh today. It's proof that Norrington and his team really knew what they were doing visually, even if the critics didn't give them credit at the time. You can watch this in Hulu right now, and believe me, it is worth it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and please keep watching The Crypt of Nights.